What's up, guys? DrFeelGood here, back again with another video prescription. And today I want to talk about Sony and Microsoft. That's right, I want to talk about PlayStation and Xbox. And it's for a reason. How should I start this? This has been going on for quite some time. Most of you know this, at least those with common sense should know this. And I will even go so far as to say some of you know the reason why, or at least you feel it's easy to see why through deductive reasoning. But here goes. Let me ask you a quick question, or a few questions. You ever wondered why the same shit keeps happening? And you may be asking, Dr. Feelgood, what the hell are you talking about? Be specific. I will. You ever wanted to know why Nintendo consoles, as of late, seem to not get certain games? You ever wondered why they have the most lame and or repetitive excuses as to why a game cannot be ported to a Nintendo console? I'm referring to third parties, by the way. You ever wonder why the Wii U was considered too weak for a game, and then that same game would get ported to the Xbox 360 and or PS3? Because we know it was more powerful than both of those, right? Yeah. You ever wondered why many of these games get revealed 2 to 3 times at E3 or other various game conferences, or game shows rather? You ever simply thought about why Nintendo gets the short end of the stick from these third-party companies? Well, I have an answer. And I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. And I think most people with common sense and deductive reasoning that are able to think for themselves critically, I think they will agree. See, third parties run these two companies. But let me give you a few reasons as to why. Well, maybe more than a few, but let me give you a few reasons as to why. All right? When it comes to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, both went from basically custom hardware to generic hardware. What do I mean by that? The Xbox 360 during the 7th gen had a tri-core processor, right? Still custom, but it was a tri-core processor. The PlayStation 3 had the 7-core cell processor. You don't find that in any computer. And I don't know of any PC that has a tri-core processor. I don't. I see Duo, I see Quad nowadays, but back then I never heard of a PC having a tri-core processor. But game consoles before the 8th gen had a history of having very unique and or custom hardware. And now you look at the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, they're very generic, and I'm going to go more into my reasons. Both of them have 8 gigabytes of RAM, or as Triple M likes to say, 8 gigabytes of ramming. I like his version better. Shout out to him. They both have 8 cores. Kind of suspicious there. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah, I will have to say That's very suspicious. 8 gigs of RAM and 8 cores, both of them. Both were released in 2013, despite their predecessors releasing 1 year apart. The Xbox 360 released in 2005. The PS3 released in 2006. But somehow, someway, after Wii U released in 2012 and caught them off guard, they both decided to release a console with almost identical specs in 2013. Yeah. I wonder why that is. But let's move on. Both supported motion gimmicks at launch. True. With the Xbox 360 and PS3, the PS3 had the 6-axis controller, which they didn't really use too much, if at all. I think only a handful of games actually took advantage of it. But once they saw how well the Wii U did, what did they do? Xbox created the Kinect. PlayStation gave us the Move. Although none of those Move units or was implemented very well, that's what we got. And they both dropped support for those things very quickly. They both did. You don't hear anything about the Move. You don't hear anything about Kinect, really. Even in the 8th gen, where the Xbox One initially launched with the Kinect and you didn't have the option to get one without it, people didn't like that. They quickly dropped the Kinect out of the bundle within a year, I believe, less than a year. You were able to buy a Kinectless version of the Xbox One, even though the system was designed to function with the Kinect. They had to make some severe software changes. But let's move on. And of course, you got the PlayStation 4 still had the Move, and they had the light bar sensor, which most people don't know that was actually planned to release along with the PlayStation 4, similar to how the Kinect was the Xbox One. But once Sony saw the backlash, they scrapped it. So that's why you have a controller with a useless light on it. And you have a PlayStation Eye accessory that no one cares to buy, nor is it really supported, but it's out there. And the Move, still not really supported. Really isn't. But yeah, at launch, both the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One supported motion gimmicks, if you want to use that word. And shortly after launch, they dropped it. They didn't care for it. They didn't utilize it. Next up, both have almost completely cut their support of motion gimmicks, and that's true. They really have. You really don't hear much about them. To this day, can you name a major title, even a mid-tier title that utilizes PlayStation Move or the Kinect? No, you can't. Here's one. This is a troll move, I will admit, but it's also factual. Both of these consoles, the Xbox One and PS4 is what I'm referring to, both of them had longer droughts than the Wii U. That's very, very true. They did. They really, really did. People don't want to talk about that, but they did have longer droughts than even the Wii U did. The Wii U had droughts, 3 months, 4 months here, whatever, but they had even longer droughts than that. What was it, year 2015? Or was it last year that PS4 had virtually no good games coming out? Or was it? It was quite early on. I think even like the year of 2014, Xbox One had more games coming out for it. And then, of course, look at this year and the Xbox One. Only 1 or 2 major titles have released and one got canceled? Yeah. They've had longer droughts than the Wii U. But they don't want to talk about that. Here's one right here. Both of these companies, regarding their 8th gen consoles, had initially had any plans for backwards compatibility. Now, the Xbox One has it now, but Neither one of them for years had any plans for it. In fact, PlayStation 4 still does it, not within the system. Now, of course, they have their PlayStation, I think it's called PlayStation Now service, where you can stream, PS3 and PS4 games and maybe even older ones. But yeah, they had no plans for backwards compatibility. None. I think Xbox just launched their streaming service. I forget what it's called, but yeah, they initially had no plans for backwards compatibility. And I remember gamers saying, well, they didn't care about that. They didn't need it. I don't buy new console, play old games. And once Xbox announced they were going to start doing backwards compatibility with the 360, gamers were happy as shit. Funny, I thought you didn't care. And now they're doing it with the original Xbox, and you guys are clamoring for it. But you didn't care, right? It wasn't a need. You didn't care about that feature. They're doing something that, the Wii did, the Wii U. They're behind the times, but we're not going to talk about that. I never hear about that from that perspective. But let's keep going, shall we? Of course, both of them use Blu-ray discs, although the amount of use for them, if defining the word, use is it's a very loose term. And why do I say that? Because both of these systems require mandatory installs even when you buy a physical version of a game. You still have to install a game, whether it be 20, 30, 40, 50, even upwards to 90 gigabytes. Sad. Both these systems release with 500 gigabyte hard drives. Now, I know some of you like, okay, so what? Well, that's kind of funny, since I know that before these systems release, their predecessors both had available 500 gigabyte hard drives. I have the Xbox 360E, which is the one that looks like an Xbox One, the initial Xbox One. Smaller, quieter, has that straight up square form factor instead of the unique one. But yeah, I have the 500 gigabyte official Xbox hard drive in it. So you launched these far more powerful systems with the exact same size hard drive as your predecessors already had going for them. And I believe the PS3 also had a 500 gigabyte equivalent. But of course, with the PS3, you're able to swap out the hard drive anyway. So I heard people having, 1 terabyte hard drives in theirs and stuff like that. So, but yeah, you had that ability. You really did. But they were basically offering the same thing their predecessors had near the end of their life cycle, of course, but still. But your predecessors didn't require installs. You did. So to me, the smallest hard drive you should have offered even at launch should have been 1 terabyte. But we're not going to talk about that. Both of these consoles did not support external hard drives at launch, something the Wii U did day one. They didn't support it. In fact, the PS4 just patched in that support earlier this year, 2017. I hear a lot of people saying, it's 2017, Nintendo, Sony. I could have said back in 2013, hey, PS4, it's 2013. Why don't you support external hard drives, especially when all your games need to be installed? The Wii U did it at launch. It took you 5 years later to get it. Damn. But you don't hear about that, do you? Both of these systems have crappy built-in video capture cards, essentially, or game capture, whatever you want to call it, that are limited to 720p at 30 frames per second. So the capture cards in your systems, you're not going to get 60 frames per second like you can on even an Elgato and other various cheap capture cards out there. And even though your game is in 1080p, you're not going to capture any gameplay at 1080p. Sorry. So that's kind of funny. If your system can output 1080p, and that's what you always brag about, why would your capture card be limited to 720p? So you mean to tell me even so the people that don't have external capture cards, the ones that brag about wanting to have the best looking version of a game, the highest resolution and higher frame rate, those that are playing, let's just say, Uncharted 4 on the PS4 at 1080p, 60 frames per second, whatever gameplay you want to share via game capture, the built-in game capture, you only give them 720p, 30 frames per second. That's fucked up. It's sad that Sony didn't think of you better, think of you more when it came to that. But I won't lie, to me, having any capture device is better than none. So I think it's still a good thing they have it, but they're crappy. Moving on. Both offered slim versions within a couple of months of each other, roughly 3 years after they originally launched. So these systems launched in November of 2013. They both now have slim versions of their consoles that were available in 2016, about 3 years later. Xbox dropped their Slim in August of 2016. And of course, the PlayStation 4 Slim, I believe, dropped in like November or shortly after that. But yeah, just a couple of months shy, really. Okay. Both of these companies or consoles also have mid-generation upgrades. With the PlayStation 4, they got the PlayStation 4 Pro, which is supposed to be significantly more powerful than the PS4, the vanilla version. And then, of course, you got the Xbox One X that is coming out later this year. So Microsoft released a mid-generation upgrade 4 years after the original, whereas Sony did it 3 years. Wow. So after you paid $500 in 2013, you now have the option to pay another $500 for essentially the same system that plays the same games and no exclusive games that we know of in 2017. And that's even worse for Sony. You paid $400 at launch in 2013, and a PS4 Pro costs $400 3 years later. Anyway, both of these consoles require services for online multiplayer. That's right. And I'm not saying every single game. I'm not sure if every single game requires that. But I do know games like Call of Duty, Battlefield, Borderlands, Madden, 2K, things like that. You got to have PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live Gold. And you know what else is similar? They both cost $60 a year. Now, I know some of you are going to say, well, I typically going to pay about $35, $40 for my Xbox Live Gold. Yeah, I understand that's what you pay. I never paid full price Xbox Live Gold. Never. Not even the 7th gen. But still, we know what the manufacturer retail price is. $60. Okay? $60 a year. Both of these consoles have ads on the UI in one way or another, and there is no ad blocker in sight. Now, this is mostly something petty, and it's a troll move, I will admit, but it's very factual. There are tons of ads on the UI, whether it be movies, for games, for music, but there are tons of ads. And unlike a PC, there is no ad blocker. You can't get rid of them. They're there. So while you're searching for gaming content, you're seeing sign up for our music service. Look at this commercial for Old Spice. It feels like I'm watching a damn cable network. Both offer free games every month. And this is a good thing, but even still, it's funny how they both are doing the same thing. That's the purpose of this. I think PlayStation was doing it first, and then, of course, Xbox copied. But they both offer a few games every single month. If you want, by subscribing to their premium service, which would be PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live Gold. And having said that, both prevent you from keeping and or playing said games should your premium membership lapse or expire. So you get these free games every month. You can play them as much as you like, but once your membership comes to a screeching halt, you can no longer access those games. Yeah. So they're not really yours. It's more of a glorified rental service. Now let's get on to some serious ones. Both have very few exclusives, and it's very true. Especially in the beginning, oh my gosh, the first 2-3 years of these systems was abysmal. It really was. I would say for sure the first 2 years were terrible. But they have very few exclusives. And having said that, both of these systems rely heavily on third-party content. You don't see them really promoting their own games so much as Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Madden, FIFA, Battlefield. Those games get the praise and promotion from these companies more so than their own exclusives. They do. Grand Theft Auto 5? Shit. There's nothing else to say, is there? Both of these companies are pursuing VR. PlayStation has already released the PlayStation VR late last year. I think Microsoft is still pursuing the whole HoloLens thing, and I think they have I forget what theirs is called. I do apologize, having a brain fart. But they're both pursuing VR in one way or another, and Sony is going hard in the VR. Their E3 conference was VR focused, in my opinion. Both are pursuing fake 4K. And I say fake because their games are not being created in native 4K with 4K assets. They're being up-res to 4K. So it's not really. The system may run the game natively at 4K, but if the game itself wasn't created that way, then you can't say it's real 4K. You can't say that. That is just factual. If I take a picture of a 4x6 picture, and I stretch it to an 8x10, although you can say, well, hey, the photo is now in an 8x10, I stretched those pixels out. It still has the same resolution as a 4x6 had originally. But yeah, they're both pursuing fake 4K. You got the PS4 Pro that so far, although it may have some games, it may add HDR to some of their games, some of its library of games, which are very few in fact, such as Horizon Dawn. But I have not heard of any game being run at 4K yet on the PS4 Pro. I could be wrong, but no game yet that I can think of is running in 4K. And if it is, it's not even locked 30 frames per second. But I could be wrong. If I am, feel free to correct me. But my point still stands. This is still fake 4K. And of course, the Xbox One X, I think it has more potential to run games in 4K, but I don't expect 4K 60 frames per second. I don't. And even still, these games were not made from the ground up in 4K. They're just being up-res, which I think is Forza 7. So even still, my point is still valid. But funny how they're both pursuing the same thing around the same time. Both promote and or advertise third-party multiplats during game conferences and shows, even when the third party has already done the same thing. Don't know what I'm talking about? Look at E3. any E3. Let's look at this year's E3. Ubisoft showed off Assassin's Creed during their own conference, but Sony and Microsoft showed it off during their conferences as well. Wow. Kind of funny. So the same game got exposed or got exposure 3 times. And look at Activision. They don't even hold their own press conference. But Call of Duty was shown off for both. Every year, they don't hold their press conference, but both systems show it off. Look at Battlefield. Before the game released, it was shown off for both consoles. Both. Doesn't matter, man. FIFA is shown off for both consoles. EA may have their own show. They'll show off FIFA and Madden, and then both Sony and Microsoft will show off those same games during their conferences. Just how it is. Both of these consoles have more bundles containing third-party games than first-party games. I've seen the Halo bundle. I think for Halo 5 and for Halo Wars. I've seen the Forza bundle. But you know I've also seen? I've seen the Battlefield 1 bundle. I've seen the Black Ops 3 bundle. I've seen an Assassin's Creed bundle, I believe. I think a 2K bundle. A Madden bundle. Yeah, they have more bundles containing third-party games. Final Fantasy bundle even for a PlayStation 4. They have more bundles for third-party games than their own exclusives. I've seen an Uncharted bundle. But you know what else I've seen? The games I mentioned. Assassin's Creed, Battlefield, Call of Duty. Yeah. That should tell you something. And I mentioned this earlier, but both of these companies, these consoles also have or offer a game streaming service. You got the Microsoft version. I think it's called I forget. It's called something. I forget what it is. But then you also have the PlayStation Now, which I think they're going to increase the price of that. And it's already overly expensive, but whatever. Both of these consoles have amounted tons of debt. The Xbox 360 and PS3, I think they total around $8 to $9 billion of debt in the 7th gen. I know for a fact that PlayStation 3 amounted $1 billion of debt within the first year of release. And Microsoft amounted $1 billion in debt with the whole red ring of death thing. But they were operating the debt at a loss almost the entire gen. Almost the entire 7th gen, which goes from 2005 up to, I would say, 2013. But yeah, they were operating at a loss for the most part. The PlayStation 3 didn't become remotely profitable until 2012, 6 years later, and a year before the PlayStation 4 launch. That's sad. That you just started digging yourself out a hole a year prior to your next console launching. And to me, the PlayStation 3 still has some steam. It still had some go about it. There are things I think can still be done on the PlayStation 3 where there was no need for a PlayStation 4. My opinion, but I do believe that. Xbox 360, it has started being somewhat maxed out. But they were doing some wonderful things with that. They were making things work. Although the PS3 was more powerful, Xbox 360 got all the attention. But moving on. The PS4 and Xbox One are no different because they're both essentially being sold at a loss. Now, I know the PS4, Sony announced that they actually make a slight profit on the console. But at the end of the day, if you count everything they're doing, if you go not just by the price of the parts in the system, but paying for the retail space like that, they're operating at a loss, people. They really are. They're operating at a loss. And do you think that since Activision's not paying for advertising, you think Sony and Microsoft are not paying for the advertising? They are, especially Sony. That contributes to the loss. But if you want to be technical and stick this with the price of the system, Sony was making a slight profit at, when the system launched on every console sold, right? I can say that. I don't think the Xbox One was profitable at launch. But I have to say, with the release of the Slim and the PS4 Pro and VR all within the same 2 or 3 month time span, I'm telling you right now, they're operating a loss in my opinion. I could be wrong, but the R&D to make a new system, and on top of that, you were selling PS4s literally for $200, brand new. I bought one with Uncharted, $200. The PS4, it had the cost to produce a PS4 has not been cut in half. Let's be honest. If it was costing you almost $400 in the past, like $380 or whatever out of the $400 you were charging, it doesn't cost you $150 now to make a PS4. Let's be real. And with PlayStation VR and PS4 Pro, they're operating at a loss, people. And Xbox, same thing, I'm pretty sure. I don't have the facts, but using deductive reasoning, I'm almost sure. What else? Despite the power of both these consoles, both have very few games pushing 1080p at 60 frames per second. Not one or the other, I mean both. Hell, even if I use one, both of these systems have very few games operating at 60 frames per second. Very, very few. The Wii U had more games running at 60 frames per second than both these systems combined. That is sad. It was a Wii console, remember? That's sad. That's very, very sad, people. And let's say by some happenstance, somebody decides to do the research on this claim of mine and go pull up the games, and they found out that the Sony PlayStation has 10 games at 60 frames per second, the Xbox One has 8 games at 60 frames per second, and the Wii U has a total of 17 games at 60 frames per second, and the total of the Xbox One and PS4 is 18. Okay, you got me there on the technicality, but you know what the hell I'm saying. Just being honest with you. So you can grasp at straws all you want, but you know what I'm saying. Both of these systems both of these systems have rarely used or unused features in their controllers. Yeah, I had to go here. Let me break it down. The Xbox One, although I love that controller, is very well built, very sturdy, probably one of the best controllers built in gaming history. I would say that was one of the best. And it has rumble for the triggers, but it's only used in a handful of games. I think Forza is one of them, if not the only. Shit. But only a handful of games even utilize that feature. Rumbling triggers. That's cool, but not many games use it. And the PS4 controller, let's see here. You got an unused light bar draining your damn battery. You can't turn off. All you can do is buy little covers to make it look cool. You got the 6-axis, which I think only a handful of games, if any, even use. That was their attempt to, they brought that over from the PS3, and that was their attempt to mimic what the Nintendo did with the Wii U and gyro, but whatever. But yeah, 6-axis rarely used, if at all. The touchpad. The touchpad is very underused. It's basically a fucking pause button. Forgive my language. I'm sorry. But it's essentially a pause button. It really is. There are a few games that let you do mediocre BS with it, But it's a pause button. That's really what it is. Oh yeah, you can slide your finger across when you want to type on. We want to type things in using the on-screen keyboard, which is kind of like using a Wii pointer. But even still, for gaming, is rarely used, and its uses are so minute and half-assed. You don't even care to use it. I have never heard anyone brag about the touchpad on the PS4. You guys have a touch feature on it, but it's garbage. It's garbage. But yeah, unused features. Um, Speaking of controllers, both these consoles offer custom controller programs. Of course, Xbox is the first one to do it since they really haven't had any games coming out. They've been pushing their controllers. Yes, I'm trolling, but it's also the truth. And now Sony's doing the same thing. First, Xbox had their custom program. They had their Elite controller. Now Sony has a custom program, and they also have an Elite controller. Yeah. They have more controller options than games. And last but not least, and I'm going to provide details on this. Facts. Both only have one exclusive in their top 10 best-selling games. One, people. I looked up VG charts. I know VG charts is not the most accurate, but when it comes to something that's available to the public, it is pretty much the best option we have, if not the only. But looking at VG charts, the top selling list of Xbox One games. And of course, this hasn't been updated as of late, but I'm pretty sure it still stands. But Black Ops 3 is number 1. Grand Theft Auto 5 is number 2. Call of Duty Advanced Warfare is number 3. Battlefield 1 is number 4. Halo 5 Guardians is number 5. Then, of course, number 6 is Fallout 4. 7 is Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. No surprise there. 3 Call of Duties. Number 8 is Star Wars Battlefront. 9 is Minecraft, which is not exclusive. And 10 is FIFA. Only one exclusive is on that list, and it's at number 5. It's not even the first. It's not even the top 1. Not even the top 3. It rounds out the top 5 according to this list. But out of the top 10 selling games for the Xbox One, only one is an exclusive. Let's move on to the PlayStation 4, shall we? Number 1, Grand Theft Auto 5. Number 2, Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Number 3, FIFA 17. Number 4, Uncharted 4. Number 5, FIFA 16. Number 6, Star Wars Battlefront. Number 7, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Number 8, Fallout 4. Number 9, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. And number 10, Battlefield 1. Wow. One exclusive in the top 10. Let's compare the other 8-gen console. Because Switch is 9-gen. But let's compare the other 8-gen console, which is the Wii U. Out of the top 10 best-selling games on the Wii U, they are all exclusive. Mario Kart 8, New Super Mario Bros. U, Super Smash Bros., Super Mario 3D World, Splatoon, Nintendo Land, Super Mario Maker, New Super Luigi U, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, Mario Party 10, and I can keep going. Even rounding out the Wii U's top 20, guess what? Number 11, Wii Party U. 12, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. 13, Yoshi's Woolly World. 14, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. 15, Pokken Tournament. 16, Minecraft. The first exclusive in the top 10 games of the Wii U, or the top selling games on the Wii U, comes in at number 16, Minecraft. And then, even rounding out the top 20, is nothing but exclusives. Hyrule Warriors, number 17. 18 is Twilight Princess HD. 19 is Lego City Undercover, which is now a multi-plat. It became multi-plat a few months back, but still, it was an exclusive up to that point. And 20 is Pikmin 3. And I can keep going even further with the Wii U. 21, Breath of the Wild. 22, Zombie U, which is an exclusive up until last year. 23, Xenoblade Chronicles X. 24, Wii Fit U. 25, Bayonetta 2. 26, Paper Mario Color Splash. 27, Mario and Sonic at the Olympics 2014. So they got about 4 games that are third party in the top 30, 4 or 5 games. Skylanders, Just Dance, Lego Marvel Superheroes. Then, of course, Minecraft. So out of the top 30 games sold on the Wii U, only 4 are third-party multiplats. 5 you want to count Lego City Undercover. Wow. 25 games, 30 games, 25 are exclusives. And yet, you only have one around the top 10 of PlayStation 4. Now, I think for PlayStation 4, their next exclusive comes in at Last of Us, which technically it's not. It came out on the PS3, but that's 2013. I mean, that's actually number 13. And number 15 is Uncharted Nathan Drake Collection. But out of the top 20 games, only 1, 2, 3 are exclusives when it comes to the PS4. You want to do top 30? Oh yeah. Still, only those 4 exclusives. Last of Us, Uncharted. 4, Uncharted Collection. 3 damn exclusives in the top 30 selling games. 3 people. Horizon Zero Dawn is actually number 31. Top 30 games, only 3 are exclusive to the PlayStation 4. That's sad. Xbox One. Top 10, only Halo 5 Guardians. Top 20. At 13, you got Master Chief Collection, Gears of War Ultimate Edition, Gears of War 4, and Titanfall. So actually, the Xbox One, out of the top 20, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 exclusives in the top 20. Sony has 3 in the top 30. So Xbox One is still better. If you go to 30 for the Xbox One as well, you got Forza Motorsport 6 coming in at number 28. Forza Motorsport 5 coming in at 23. Forza Horizon 3 coming in at 22. So they add 3 more games. 3 more. So they got 8 exclusives in the top 30 best-selling games. That's a huge difference, people. This is VG Charts. Look it up yourself. But that's sad. That is very sad. That's why I entitled this video Birds of a Feather. You want to know why? With all these points I just mentioned, let me ask you the question. Who is running these companies? Who is truly running PlayStation and Xbox? I tell you who. Third parties. Sony ain't running shit. Microsoft ain't running shit. They're heavily dependent on these companies. These companies know this. That's why Activision doesn't even really pay for their own damn advertising. Sony is going ham. Xbox did it in the 7th gen. Now Sony's doing it in the 8th gen. Look at Battlefield. Sony did it in the 7th gen. Now Xbox is doing it in the 8th gen. They run these companies. Same amount of RAM, same amount of cores, same basic generic PC architecture. AMD in both. Well, actually, it was an AMD had all 3, but still, they're almost the same except Xbox had DDR3, Sony had DDR5 for the RAM, but that's it. That's pretty much the only significant difference. Both use Blu-ray, have to install games. Who's running these companies? The third parties. This is why Nintendo doesn't get any games from EA, Ubisoft, and Activision for the most part, because Nintendo ain't gonna pay for shit. Nintendo is not gonna give them control of anything. Nintendo owns 80% of their own company. Yes, 80%. Only 20% is actually available to the public for sale. They maintain 80%. And look at the list of games I gave you for the Wii U, Xbox One, and PS4. That goes to show you that Nintendo supported their console pretty much on their own during the 8th gen. And they still came out on top with in terms of profit. Not sales, but in terms of profitability, they kicked that ass. These two companies are third-party consoles. They're run by the third parties. It's a fact, people. Look at all the shit I just mentioned. They are run by the third parties. That's why third parties don't care too much about Nintendo, because they don't really need Nintendo. Because you have Sony and Microsoft paying their bills. They're paying to have the game put on their system. They're paying for the advertising. They're paying for exclusive DLC and or launch DLC. They're paying all the bills. Sony more so. But they're doing this to their detriment. That's the problem. See, even if the PlayStation 4 wins the 8th generation, which to me it already has, in terms of sales, it was a very Pyrrhic victory. And by Pyrrhic, I mean it cost them more than what they got out of it. You may have 60 million PS4s in the market. You may be the market leader for the 8th gen, but you are operating at a loss. You pay far too much for it to even be profitable to you. It's not even worthwhile. Same thing for Xbox. But at least Xbox had the nerve to Microsoft cut the strings of the Xbox division, so they had to make more sound decisions. And they have. For the most part, they have. Nintendo made money. No Sony exclusive or Xbox exclusive outsold a Nintendo exclusive. You could say, well, Uncharted outsold Mario Kart. To an extent, you could say that. But guess what? Uncharted 4 has a console base of 60 million. Mario Kart had a console base of 14 million. And it still sold almost 9 million. Uncharted is just shy of 9 million, but out of 60 million PS4s. That's sad. I'm just saying. With or without a bundle, that's still sad. But yeah, these are third-party machines. They're running these consoles. They control everything. So, to the Nintendo fans out there, don't get mad when you don't get a certain game. The reason we're not getting it is because we don't need it. The reason we're not getting it is because Nintendo refuses to bend over and take it up the ass like these other two companies have. These third parties told Sony and Microsoft what they wanted, how they wanted it, and that's why these systems are almost identical. That leads you to believe three things. Like honestly, either Sony and PlayStation are working together, or the third parties control everything. Which to me is the third parties control everything. How the hell you guys have the same launch plans, the same everything? Everything you guys the same. Even your libraries are all like 80% identical, if not more. They control everything. Third parties rule these two consoles, and they know it. So that's why when I hear about a game not coming to Nintendo, I already know why, and I don't care. Because they don't have to bring it to Nintendo. They're going to kiss the ass. Sony and Microsoft are going to kiss that ass repeatedly. They're going to lick that shit out the crack repeatedly. And Nintendo's just sitting back making money. Adding the Benjamins. Profit every quarter. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. I'm sorry if I went on a little bit long. I have been doing it as of late. But as always, keep it gaming.